Hi LCMSD families, this is Brett Geithman, your superintendent. Paula Renier, our chief business officer, and I have been conducting these coffee chats recently around school budget. Some of the feedback that we've received is that parents want this message spread throughout the district. So we're trying something new. We're going to do this with a video and we're aiming to do it in less than 10 minutes. We start our coffee chat by discussing the district's strategic priorities, specifically zooming in on sustaining the fiscal integrity and then also attracting, cultivating, and retaining innovative and effective educators. So fiscal stability, part of this is taking a look at ensuring that our budget is approved. Unfortunately, there have been several districts throughout the state where they've actually been taken over because they've been unable to do this. One of the criteria is that we meet the minimum in terms of reserves, which is at least 5%. As a district, we commit to at least a 6% reserve, and that's 3 years out. So if we're able to do that, typically the county will go ahead and certify, and then we'll ensure that we're able to stay solvent for the next 3 years, and we continue that process year after year. So some of you may have heard of Prop 13 and how this has affected school funding. So Prop 13 was passed in 1978 and changed funding dramatically. Overnight, it went from our state's budget went from $9 billion to $6 billion in terms of educational funding. That's because the way that property tax works is it's based off the purchase price of your home. You could have bought your home 10, 20, 30 years ago, but you're paying property tax based on that purchase price or that value from 20 years ago. In many other states, what ends up happening is your property is assessed every other year, and then your property tax adjusts to what the current value of your home is. If that were the case in California, school districts would receive a lot more money in terms of property taxes. Right now, we rank 46th in the nation in terms of per pupil spending. What this shows is the actual spending itself. So there's this thing called the local control funding formula. What it does is it determines how much money we should receive per pupil and then expands that out for the entire school district. School districts with more English learners and with more students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged receive more funds. Students in those subgroups tend to need more resources in terms of their educational experience. So here's what LCMSD's CUP looks like, or total funding, right? We have about $9 million coming in from property taxes, but that's not enough to fill the entire cup. So the state comes in and awards us approximately $2.4 million. Now the cup is full, we're at that minimum expenditure per pupil, and we can go ahead and then implement our educational program, or what is deemed appropriate by the state as an educational program. Now this example, you can see the property taxes are pouring in. If your property taxes continue to fill and start overflowing out of the cup, you get to keep that. That's what basic aid is called. And there's a number of neighboring districts and districts throughout the state that fall into the basic aid category. So what is our entitlement per pupil? So how much money do we receive per student? This year, it's approximately $7,600 per student. If I was able to rewind this graph to 2007-8, right when the Great Recession started taking a hit, we would have received $8,500 per pupil. What this is trying to do is just simply restore where we were at 10 years ago. When we're fully funded, so to say, by LCFF in 2021, we will be at $8,300 per pupil. So what other sources of revenue do we have? So we take that $7,400 per pupil, we get our entire district budget that way, but we have other sources of revenue coming in. We have our parcel tax, so thank you so much for passing that. We have our foundation, so Spark is a major supporter. We have our leases, such as Marin Primary, and then from time to time we have bonds come in to enhance our facilities. So here's our overall budget. You can see LCFF here. Our parcel tax is approximately $3 million. Our foundation is approximately $1 million. We have other revenue coming in, such as leases and those things, at about 1.7. So where do we spend the funds that are coming in? In any school district in California, what you would see is approximately 80% of all funding coming in is going towards school employee salary and benefits, right? Because we have a lower class size here, our salary and benefits are actually a little bit higher. It's about 85%. So when you take into account those two graphs, what's our actual spending per pupil? So we get that cup, and then we have these other sources of revenue, and we're actually at $12,500 per student. So because of the parcel tax, because of Spark, because of leases, that pushes us up another $5,000 per student to get the experience that your kids are getting every day. Some have asked, well, what's the spending per pupil in other districts? Let's say some high-performing districts such as ours. So what we did was we pulled the top 5 high performers in California, threw in some other local and or like school districts, as well as some across the country to see where's per pupil funding. So here is that graph, that matrix here. You can see LCMSD is right in that kind of bottom third in terms of pure per pupil funding. Some then ask, well, what about achievement in those districts? Does it matter? Is there some sort of comparison between spending per pupil and then actual achievement? And you can see here, there really isn't that sort of trend. We're all in a similar place, but you look at San Marino's typically performs as your top performer throughout the entire state, and they're right in the middle of the pack. They're at 91% of students scoring meets or exceeds in terms of English language arts, and 86 in terms of math. But they're right in the middle. So what makes the difference? So it's not only having the funds coming in, right, because we need the resources to do things beyond what the state gives us, but then also taking the knowledge of what is best practice in education. And a lot of that comes down to professional development. Taking our research, aligning it with practice, and providing personalized learning both academically and social-emotionally. In terms of professional development, coming from past experiences in a high-performing district, in Manhattan Beach, we had $1.1 to $1.2 million dedicated towards professional development every year. In LCMSD numbers, with our current enrollment, that would be approximately $250,000 to $300,000. What do we spend every year? What's our actual? $40,000 to $45,000. So what I would suggest is that in order to continue to enhance the experience of your students, to also grow our teachers and increase that overall job satisfaction, is to really look at what are ways to increase professional development. And that comes from not only district budget, but that comes from foundation, that comes from other sources such as grants. We really need to take a look at this in years out. So here is a model of how our school district is funded. If we didn't receive the parcel tax, Spark, or PTO or PTA funds, this is what the state believes is an appropriate education right here in the green. And so basically what that looks like, in kindergarten, we'd have about 31 to 33 students. In 1st through 3rd grade, we'd have about 30 to 32 students. And then we move on to 4th through 8th grade, we'd have anywhere from 29 to 40 students per class. There wouldn't be a music and art, a music, art, library, or PE teacher in K through 5. Teachers at K through 5 hold a multiple subject credential, so the state believes that could just be taught by the classroom teacher, that we don't need additional specialists for that. At the middle school, we wouldn't have world language, we wouldn't have library instruction, we wouldn't have a vice principal, and we'd have very limited music and art. Also, across K through 8, we'd have limited to no counseling. That's what the state believes is what an education should be in California. Now, your experience is far different than that. And the reason why is because of the parcel tax, Spark, and PTO and PTA. The parcel tax lowers our class size, provides technology. These are not a standard in every classroom. A standard is like a chalkboard, a dry erase board if you're lucky. One-to-one devices at any grade level is not a standard. Kids can write on paper, and that's what the state provides for. Your parcel tax at work is providing all this additional. World language and PE teachers are also provided through the parcel tax. A librarian, counselors, the hall vice principal, some classroom aides. That's a lot. When we move into Spark, Spark enhances the district even more by providing technology specialists, social emotional learning, and then also art and music teachers, as well as science and art materials, along with outdoor ed, supplementing the outdoor ed costs. PTO and PTA provide some classroom supplies. release time for teachers for professional development, and offset field trip costs. So this is your total experience, but this is only what the state provides for. It's the parcel tax, Spark, and PTA that make this amazing education possible for our students every day. So what can we do as a community? As a community, we need to continue to educate and engage. Make sure that people understand how California schools are funded and how our school districts is funded. Also, we need to support. We need to support Spark. We need to support parcel taxes. Those are the lifeline of our school district. And then finally, we need to focus and prioritize. So taking these resources that we have coming in and really looking at what are the best practices to overall continue to enhance your child's everyday school experience. Thank you so much for taking the time. I think we made our goal of 10 minutes. I'm hoping so. Have a great rest of the week, and we appreciate you watching this video.